Yeah. All right. Let's go live. Hello. My name is Kat. My channel is Katie Reids Books. This is Casey.
Yeah, I'm Casey from Casey's Book. Sorry, I'm trying to like see when it's live on the YouTube and I got distracted.
That's okay.
That way I can mute it properly in my headphones and not hear a bunch of things while we're talking. Okay, it has popped up on the other YouTube, so we're good to go.
All right. Let's see. This is the Sanderfans server Words of Radiance book discussion. There. Now we're all introduced.
Live
show. All right. 221 Bookworm is hyping us. I appreciate it. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. I think so. Like I was telling Kat before we actually went live, I was doing some research on how other people do live shows because I think she and I are both still new to this. So I think we'll start with some non-spoilery things. Does that sound good with everybody? That way, if you haven't read the book, you can hang out with us for a little bit. Because I don't want y'all to be spoiled if you do ever plan to read this book because you deserve to experience it to the fullest.
Yeah. Oh, man. I find it funny. Like, it's hard to talk about this. I think we talked about this in the last live show too, that it's difficult to discuss each book separately because like you can't not spoil the 12 or 1300 pages that you read the last time that you picked up a Stormlight Archive book.
Well, yeah, but I think spoilers for the present book. If someone's here, we should assume that they've already read Way of Kings. And I know that this book in particular kind of starts connecting some more Cosmere dots. And I think, and this is, you can kind of decide on this as well, Kat, is are we allowed to mention like if stuff is seen in other books, but like kind of not talk about what it is in the other books? Or do we want to just like not touch on Cosmere connections at all?
Well, so I think probably we should see what we can do about like trying to keep spoilers within the Stormlight Archive books that we've already read, since like because like I would assume if you're here at this live show that you've been reading the Stormlight books at least, right? So like,
yeah,
spoilers from book one is going to be inevitable. As far as Mistborn goes and how other Cosmere stuff goes in, I think it's safe to say that anything that we could discuss as far as connections in this live show would not necessarily be spoiler, because if you're in Mistborn,
well, I was going to more mention this character that we see in Words of Radiance, by the way, is also in Warbreaker, and like leave it at that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Why not? That's, yeah.
Well, very cool. So I guess, so I'm going to just mention to everybody hanging out with us that I have recently finished Rhythm of War. It was fabulous. Continue reading. It's a great time. But I'm going to try to not, like, I very meticulously went back and got like the beginning of this book and the end of this book, so I don't give spoilers. So if I just like sit here like with my coffee mug in front of my face, don't expect me to answer a question. But yeah, so Kat, do you want to just give your spoiler-free thoughts and rating for Words of Radiance and what you've just thought about it in general?
I liked that we got to see more from the sprint. Like we got to see a lot more about what, and we didn't get to see it, right? But we started learning more about the cognitive realm. I thought that was really cool. Kaladin's story and all this was fun. I'm kind of still lukewarm with Shallan. I wanted to warm up a little bit more with her. It didn't quite happen. And then I think I can be friends with oh my god, I just forgot his name.
Adolin?
Adolin. There we go.
Yeah, Adolin. Yeah.
I was like, it sounds like Aoden. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts so far. And Wit, I love Wit. I'm so excited to see where I think I have like suspicions on who he is and why he's there and things of that nature.
That's exciting.
That'll wait.
Did you like this more or less than Way of Kings?
I liked it more than Way of
The
Kings.
pacing is definitely a little bit better.
Yeah, and like the thing is, like at the beginning, you of course have to get past that recap place where you're like, yes, I already know this because I just finished this last book, and like understand that this book was published much farther ahead than we're actually reading it, but or that I'm actually reading it. So once I got past that, it was like, yes, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, I definitely I think I loved Way of Kings for myself, but I'm also not afraid of like a slower book that focuses a lot on world building, and like I enjoy that aspect of it. So like I gave both Way of Kings and Words of Radiance 5 stars. I do think that the pacing was a lot faster. I really just kind of liked how we got to just see all of the characters kind of meet up with each other, and that was a really good time for me personally, and kind of just seeing how they cross paths and how they interact with each other, because everybody, especially in Way of Kings, is very separate storylines, so it was kind of nice to see it all come together more in this book. I agree. I have to find my notes here because I was taking notes as I was remembering what the heck happened in this book.
So real quick, Sammy suggested that since a lot of people start Sanderson with Stormlight Archive, it would make sense to keep it spoiler free for things that like Mistborn. So
yeah, I agree.
So let's put that feather in our cap for the very end of the live show.
Yes,
and we can do it that way. So we will warn you guys before we start. We will try to warn you guys before we start geeking too hard about how this connects with other stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that. So I definitely did love this book, and I during the rereading experience of both Way of Kings and this one, I'm just like it hit so much harder because I knew where everything was going, and it was a lovely time. So
So I liked the point that you made about how in this book we see everybody's storylines actually start to weave together and how these people are gonna be important to one another. I agree, and reading Words of Radiance makes you understand why people are like, Way of Kings is all set up. You know, it's like you get that while you're reading it, but then you read Words of Radiance and you're like, damn, it really was all just framework. That was it.
Yeah, and like looking back on Way of Kings when you're at Words of Radiance, you're like, okay, I get why we spent so much time explaining all of these things and doing all that stuff. So, yeah, that's about what I have on like my just general spoiler-free thoughts. But I think something to mention for this book in particular is we really get to see some humor that I think is absolutely hilarious. And I think we can kind of still talk about some of the Sandersons like humor in a spoiler-free way officially,
okay.
but or just like out of context. I love the whole I am a stick conversation. That's a grand time.
Yes, that one was so funny.
And I think I'm gonna go pull up the actual area in our Discord because I worded it like verbatim. I think it was part 3, but so yes, I, Adeline Colon, cousin to the king, heir to the Colon princedom, have shot myself in shard plate 3 times on purpose. Like I forgot that like stuff like both that and the other some of the more humorous aspects occurred, and it was just I literally laughed out loud in this book. So
yes, I agree with that. That was one. It's funny because like as we were reading through it, I saw that spoiler come up like in the discussion in the Discord, and I was like, oh, I have to keep reading like faster so I can get to this particular part because I need to know what happens.
You need to like know the context around that. And
yes.
Yeah, I think something else for me that I can mention kind of spoiler free is I like some in the humor aspect at least is I liked seeing like Lopin's character and some of the Bridge 4 interactions. I just think they're really funny and kind of seeing how they transition roles from like Way of Kings to this one, and like some of the just like shenanigans they get into due to that is a great time.
So oh damn it, I just had a thought. I got it from the Discord, so I don't know. Never mind, it's gone. I got distracted by this comment about Renarin. Oh no! I'm sorry. I was gonna say that I liked the interactions with Bridgefor. I missed Teft and Rock. Like they weren't there as much this time, and I was like, I want those two. I did like getting to know Lopen more. I did enjoy that.
Yeah, and just on the Lopen note, he's actually a heavily prominent feature in the Dawn Shard novella, and I was just that like I loved it so much. That's all I'll say about that. But I was just like, I wasn't expecting him to have such a big part in that novella, and I was like, Lopen.
Yes, because he's the comic relief, right? He's like
sure.
He's hilarious. So getting to see him have, picking up a more active role is splendid. Absolutely splendid.
Yeah, so honestly, like I don't know how much more we can kind of discuss spoiler free, but I do just like I mentioned earlier, love how the relationships between the people are more defined and we get to see them more explored, and just everybody getting connected to each other in this was chef's kiss, like people like to say these days, or just a good old time for that. I love Lopen, yes.
I love Lopen, absolutely. And yes, the stick. Oh my god, I was laughing to tears at the freaking stick, dude. My husband was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Nothing."
No, I think when
it's really funny.
I don't remember if I think I vlogged Words of Radiance, which I'm not very good at vlogs, but like I did it. But I think I like literally have filming of just like the pages where there's the I am a stick, like, and I like zoom in aggressively with my phone camera. So
yes,
now that y'all have finished reading this, you all should go check out my vlog. So, because I've been a little bit ahead of schedule comparative to everybody else for this. So. Yeah.
So, do we want to roll into character discussion then?
Yes. So, spoiler time. FYI.
Yeah.
There are spoilers.
Spoilery. I need to talk about Renarin because I was so like him in the last book. I was like, come on, like he's the one I want to know about. And then so in this book, I was like, yes, I get to see the younger brother. Like. I don't care about Adolin. He goes off to fight stuff. He's the knight in shining armor. That's fine. What's Renarin doing? He looks cool.
Yeah, so I think Renarin definitely got a much bigger role in this book, and I kind of like his way of trying to like discover if he could be a fighter, where because I know he gets trained and gets some shard plate and sharp blade from one of Adolin's duels, I believe. And so that was cool. And then I really did like him trying to get himself into Bridge 4. And that whole dynamic was a good old time. And I think it was definitely just good for him and his growth. And also kind of, in a way, Kaladin's like differentiation between like Light Eyes as a whole being bad and like, but like some of them have merit, like, because that's definitely a journey we see. I know we're not talking about Kaladin yet, but like that's a journey we see Kaladin going on in this book. But I think Renarin's perspective and things and kind of his interactions with Bridge 4 as a whole help with that.
Yeah, so I agree, and I think that Renarin was good for Kaladin.
Exactly.
Like having him be someone that he kind of had to take under his wing a little bit, even though he was a Light Eyes, was good to see. And it was like, Kaladin, all right, come on.
It's like you can play nice with others. This is exciting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Kaladin playing nice with others. That's hilarious.
Yeah, and I do think that we get to, and I'm having to word this carefully, but I like that we get to see that Renarin ultimately is a Radiant, and that whole journey obviously gets explored a lot more in the next book. But I thought it was a nice like because I always see like Renarin as the in conjunction with Dalinar and Adolin, where he's like Dalinar clearly loves one of his sons more than the other and like cares more about him, and I'm like, and 221 Bookworm just said Renarin must be protected at all costs, and yes, I agree with you. He is a treasure, and I just want to give him hugs. And yeah. I don't know I don't honestly remember, but I think at some point we will eventually get more explanation to like what actually happens with his like seizures or episodes, and that is just another example of how Sanderson can kind of bring people with disabilities and mental illness into his books in like a very good way and handle all of that interestingly. So I look forward to more on that as well.
Yeah, I really love Renarin. I think Potpourri called him a cinnamon bun character, and I was like, yes, he is the cinnamon bun of Stormlight Archive.
He is the cinnamon roll to be protect.
Cinnamon roll, that's the one. Cinnamon bun. It's kind of the same thing.
It's the same thing. It all applies.
All tastes delicious. So you mentioned Seth earlier. And he is another one that I want to make sure that we talk about because I was so sad for him the whole time. I hate how much he hated himself. And I enjoyed getting to see Taravangian as the villain that he was because of his role with, Seth and things. So that was good news.
Yes. So Seth is one of the things that I need to, because Seth has big roles coming that we haven't seen yet as of this book. So I'm trying to, I do think Seth's, especially I believe in this book, his like inner battle with being truthless or whatnot. And do we know about his oath stone? I believe so, right? Because
we know that the oath stone was something that was created by Taravangian.
Yes. Okay. Just wanted
so that he could control a Shin truthless guy.
Yeah. So I think that whole like inner discovery situation is cool. And Taravangian being a bad guy is amazing. It just gets better. Just you wait.
I really liked that I was afraid that when we lost Yasna, which
we'll get there.
Talk about Yasna, but I was afraid that had died with her because she was the one who went and saw what Taravangian was doing with all these people. And so whenever I saw we were going to continue to get to see that through Seth, it was like, okay, all right, we haven't forgotten about this guy.
And it's not over yet. That's all I'll say. But right. No, yeah. So I think Seth is a very interesting character, and I think, and I know we'll talk more about the Skybreaker situation when we talk about Edge Dancer, which, by the way, we're doing at the end of this after we talk about Words of Radiance. Just a heads up, everybody. But I think the whole journey with him coming to confront the whole truthless situation, the Oathstone Taravangian, and like culminating with him being later in with this new or more interesting, I can't say a whole lot about it because you don't know about it at this point, like Skybreaker situation is going to be interesting going forward with the rest of the books, and it is very important. And I also would like to just mention that I love his new sword that he gets at the end of the book. That is a Cosmere implication that I will just let you guys discover as you read the other books. And I think his battle sequence that we get generally I'm flashing back to when he was actually like truthless and whatnot with Dalinar, Kaladin, Adolin, and Szeth is super exciting.
Dude, that was like
high stress reading.
It was. And like I'm guilty of like in a battle scene, and I think Sammy has said that she's the opposite of this actually, because whenever I'm reading a battle scene, I'm like getting the bullet points, I speed read it because I'm like, I need to know who wins. This is killing me, it's stressing me out. And I think Sammy said that she kind of slows down and more savors those parts of the book. But I read every single word of that interaction simply because of the characters that it involved. It was like, okay, this isn't just Seth going after any old high prince. No. He's going after Dalinar, and Kaladin's there. So
the Blackthorn is involved.
Yes. And then just the way that incident ended up bringing Kaladin and Adolin to the point that I wanted them to be at the beginning of the book, but was not going to happen.
Romance.
Yes. I love it. I love how much they are just so besties now.
Yeah, that battle sequence was really cool. And in terms of Szeth's character, it's honestly what sparks his like just like journey into self-discovery and stuff, because he was always told that like he was the only one with these powers. So him having to like fight Kaladin in this way and realizing that he heals and that he can also use Stormlight is very much just like a light bulb going off moment and be like, for Seth, which is where he's kind of along the lines of there's bigger issues and things happening that I'm aware of. I need to go figure out what's actually going on. So I think that's a really important moment. And like Sammy and Bookworm are saying, very, very good battle sequence. Very good scene.
Yeah. Such an epic scene for sure. Yeah, and I enjoyed that for Kaladin too, because then he got to see, like, it was sort of this reveal between the two of them that was very important. I feel is probably going to be very important for the rest of the plot, you know, being that it is what started everyone kind of coalescing together.
Yeah. And it's kind of like an acknowledgement that Kaladin's not the only one with the powers, which means which again spurs like Dalinar and the whole Radiance and stuff experience. But what character's next?
Let's see. Does anybody want to suggest a character that we jump to next?
We'll give them a few seconds because they're behind us on the chatty boy.
Yeah. You know what? As an expansion on what we were talking about with Seth, I'm going to be curious to know what goes on with Shinovar in the whole larger scale thing, because something tells me they're not going to just be brushed over, right? Like, we're probably going to get to that eventually. And it's going to be, and I would like to see some sort of retribution for Seth for him being outcast as truthless, and then, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Sammy is suggesting we talk about Shallan because it is her book, and I think that's a good place to go from here because we're kind of jumping into the mains anyways at this point. Mm-hmm. I'll let you start, Kat, so I can build on what you say, not say too much of it.
So Shallan, I liked getting to see her character more in this book, and I like that we know about her backstory now, especially the backstory about her mom and the fact that she's probably partially responsible for why her dad went kind of nutty. But I was expecting to like her in a more genuine way by the end of the book. And I didn't. I kind of still am like, okay, you're easily, you take too easily to people, and you're extremely manipulative. And now you're trying to get involved in like political things, and then by the end of the book, her position I felt like was too close to how pompous she felt. I can't remember if it was in this book or the previous book where it was like, and then Shallan had to save the world, and it was like, I just rolled my eyes. It was like, really? Come on.
Yeah, sorry if I'm like, it looks like I'm talking. My roommate got an exciting package, so no, yeah. So I think Shallan's character was definitely interesting in this book, and the backstory and the way her mind works to protect herself from the truths, and ultimately like how she becomes full radiant, she has to accept these truths. And I think it's just very fascinating. And I know as the series progresses, we get more into her, which I think Brandon Sanderson said it was dissociative identity disorder. Mm-hmm. I didn't. Shallan, this book helped me to understand her a lot more. She's still not ultimately one of my favorite characters, but mostly because Kaladin is my whole heart, and that's all that there is to say about that. But yes, but I do think that this book with Shallan was very helpful in kind of expanding her personality, and it helps like thrust her, and it validates some of the stuff she's going to go through in the next few books. I do think it's like Sanderson obviously is good at putting people through trauma, but the fact that she ended up killing her mother because they tried to kill her was obviously self-defense, and that was the first issue. And then due to her like radiant status and whatnot, basically her whole family ends up, or mostly her dad, who's just generally very abusive emotionally and physically and stuff, is like using her powers as an excuse to torment her and stuff like that. So she ends up having to like make the decision when her dad is going to disown and kill her brother and be like, yeah, no, I'm going to poison you and then strangle you to death. Cause like, if I killed one of my parents, what does another one matter?
Yeah.
So that was definitely an interesting thing to read, and kind of explain part of why she really is, her coping mechanism is separating parts of her personality and parts of her memories and stuff because she just can't handle it. And pattern, I think, does help make her super interesting.
Yeah, I agree with Bookworm. Whenever I was reading Shalon's chapters, I was reading it because I wanted to see what Pattern was doing.
Yeah, I think we don't know a whole lot about the cryptid Spren, which I know Pattern is a cryptid, and I think that's very that whole side of some of the Radiants are just very fascinating to me, and I think Pattern is a very interesting thing in terms of lore and whatnot. And things happen in the fourth book, so
right. So two things about two more thoughts that I had about Shalon are that the fact that her brothers are projected to come into play more in book 3 is something that I'm very interested to see. And I think for a lot of book 1, at least, and then for even a lot of book 2, it took me a while to like accept the fact that she's 17, like she's younger. And like, even though she's got this like betrothal to Adolin and she's doing all these things that are perceptually very adult,
she is a youngin'.
Yeah, she's little. Like all these traumatic things that have happened to her have happened since before she was 17. So it's like, well, okay, I get why you're a little bit crazy, but still.
Yeah, I think that the ages being stated very obviously is helpful in like building out the trauma and the why the characters are the way they are. I think Adolin's one of the oldest of the young characters at 23 in Way of Kings, and I think at that point Kaladin is 20, and there's not that much time that has passed, so he's probably like 21 by the time we're in Words of Radiance. And Shalon being as young as she is important for her character and the way she acts the way she does. So yeah, they're all like so young, and it's crazy because you like in the world that they're in Roshar, and like this planet that's basically always at war, and there's like these horrible storms and everything. It's like, yeah, I guess you would grow up a little faster in a place like that.
Yeah. Well, and then like if you think about the fact that Kaladin was, enslaved when he was 19, and then like turned 20. I think he turned 20 after he reached Dalinar's camp, or maybe he turned 20 just before then. But yeah, he's a bitty baby too. And then I think that I'm noticing a pattern with that, with the people who are coming into being Radiants, because and not to jump too far into Edge Dancer, but Lift is very young also, and Sanderson makes it a point to point those things out.
Lift is an interesting person, and we'll talk more about it in Oathbringer probably, but she might not be as young as she seems.
Oh.
I think we get that information in Edge Dancer, but I don't want to say too much more about that in case it's not revealed immediately and I'm wrong. So I think
probably like in her interlude in Words of Radiance, she says something along the lines of like she can't be a certain age because it's an unlucky age, and she had been 10 for 3 years or something like that. So she's like 13, 14,
something like that. Yeah. Anywho, so I think that kind of wraps up my thoughts on Shalon. I think she is interesting, and I do kind of. I think one more thing I can say is when I first read this, I was very much like, into Shallan and Kaladin as a potential couple, just like the whole shipping experience. When looking back at it now, when I reread the series, and especially when I got to read what was in like Rhythm of War, it doesn't like hit me as hard as it did the very first time I read it. But I will say I kind of like the confiding that happens between like Shallan and Kaladin, because they both experienced an amount of trauma, and I do like the whole chasm scene that they have is pretty cool. Very raw and emotional. And I actually got a quote from the internet about, like, I don't have my book with me, which is a bummer, but I'm gonna find it. Okay, yeah. So Kaladin saw it. It's page 849. He saw it in her eyes, the anguish, the frustration, the terrible nothing that clawed inside and sought to smother her. She knew it was there inside. She had been broken. And then she smiled. Oh, Storm, she smiled anyways. It was the single most beautiful thing he'd ever seen in his entire life. And I'm like, okay, he makes basically anyone that potentially makes Kaladin smile, which I believe she does in this scene. I'm like, okay, thank you, honey. You did good.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I did like the interplay between those two characters. I found it very interesting. I did not see that coming. Like, I wasn't as mentally prepared to accept Kaladin and Shallan having some interesting connection as I was to see Kaladin and Adolin have the connection that they did. But I put it in the Discord somewhere. But I swear to God, if Shallan and Kaladin end up together, I'm going to write Brandon Sanderson an angry letter, because that can't happen. No.
I saw that comment when I was reviewing what the heck happened in this book, and I was looking through the Discord. I think Shallan, but like basically, I honestly, in my reread of this, if I ever wanted like Shallan and Kaladin to be together, it's like Adolin also needs to be there. It needs to be some weird like triple polyamorous relationship situation. And also, honestly, I really enjoy the like three of them as a set of friends. And
yes, I do like the friendship between the three of them. I think
friendship
it's
is
being a good dynamic.
It is definitely a good dynamic, and I think that in terms of Shallan and Kaladin, I don't like I when I was rereading this, I noticed it especially. I'm like, they're both too broken that they need to like be their own person and fix themselves before they're ready to like really be with anybody. And even like Shallan and Adolin for that. But I digress. We're like off on a shipping tangent here. But yeah, so
Purple for the win.
Purple, there we go. That's the word. Anywho, but yeah, no, I really enjoy like the friendship that they have, and kind of just like Shallan and her sarcasm on the like humor note that we were talking about earlier is very good in this book. And the whole boots that keep getting borrowed is just so funny to me.
I also thought it was Sanderson did a really good job with paralleling the two characters. And I thought it was very interesting that he had it happen when Syl was not present, so that there wasn't an immediate conflict. But I thought it was neat to see Kaladin call Shallan on her manipulative tendencies, like that was really cool, because it was like, of course the honor spren person is going to call the cryptid out, right? Like that's perfect, exactly how it needed to happen.
I feel like this is a good opportunity to transition into Kaladin.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So I think when I was reading this book, the thing that stuck out to me, and it hurt a lot more than I remember it hurting, was the whole, I guess, story arc when Kaladin is like doing the stuff with Moshe, and like Syl is not there, and all of that happens. And then obviously it's an arc, so there is redemption that occurs. But I think like the initial part was to focus on that part where Syl just like, basically Honor had predicted that he would kill Syl, and I'm like, no, my heart.
Yeah, I was very sad about that as well. It was painful to watch Kaladin make that mistake, right? Like, it was very disheartening to watch him be so faithful to Moash that he was willing to like go against what he knew to be the right thing. And the whole time you're like gritting your teeth, like, damn it, Kaladin, stop doing this.
Yeah, that's definitely a deal. And we'll talk about Moash or whatever definitely we need to talk about him. But that whole arc for Kaladin, it was just I agree with you, Bookworm.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
The whole arc for Kaladin, I do think was important, and obviously he ultimately decides and says the third ideal, which is I will protect even those I hate. And I do think that's an important thing for him to come to terms with, because Kaladin has always been
a lot of prejudice to overcome.
Yeah, he definitely does. And we see that in this book with the whole I'm going to finish my thought, then we'll talk about that. Sorry, because I keep getting sidetracked. We definitely see that Kaladin, he needed to have this arc because A, he has a lot of prejudice to overcome, and B, he has a lot of internal issues that he needs to deal with, and he continues to deal with them, like even into book 4. It's a sad time, but it's but at the same time, him going through these things and like overcoming it and saying the ideals is helping him to like have a reason to stay alive. And we know he suffers with like severe depression and anxiety and stuff, so like that had to happen, and he had to be like kicked in, like his knees had to be broken out from under him and whatnot, to be like, I really do need to be better than this, and I need to not be as prejudiced against the light eyes with I know Elokar's an idiot, but but like him deciding to protect Elokar was a very important thing for his character growth in the entire series, in my opinion. So
I agree. I'm gonna sidetrack for a second.
Go ahead.
Because Elokar, we didn't see, like, we saw his true colors at the end of Way of Kings, and that persists through Words of Radiance. But I did not take into account the fact that his wife was back in Kholinar, still running Kholinar, and then we saw that all sort of, it's like, oh, so maybe I'm curious to see like why Elokar and his wife were compatible, and how much that kind of plays into how much I want to see how badly they fuck it up, honestly. Like they're obviously going to implode.
I think Elokar, just while we're on him, like he also is a character that needs to grow up, and we see a lot more of his faults in this book, continuing from Way of Kings. And that's where I'm going to end my commentary, because you just wait for what happens in Oathbringer. Because it's hard to talk about Elokar in the context of this book, because we didn't really see that much of him, but he has a much bigger role in the next book.
Oh, I'm almost disappointed to hear that, because he's one of my least favorites.
I will enjoy seeing how that perspective may or may not change via Oathbringer.
Before keeping his mouth shut. Sorry, I assumed.
No, yeah. So I think back on Kaladin, I think we should also talk about that part where Adolin is doing the boon situation and the fight against the 4 shard bearers, and Kaladin actually like decides to jump in there and save the day. While also ruining what their plan was, because he was like, I'm gonna, back on his prejudice high horse, like yell out Amaram and in front of everybody and like get shoved in jail.
One of my favorite friggin' lines from the whole book was, honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do. It was like, yes. Like I read that, and I had my book, and I was like, ah! Once again, my husband's like, you good? And I'm like, yes. Like, Kaladin is amazing.
You just got to read the book so you know what we're talking about when we emote audibly.
But yes, I really loved that. And the thing is, I don't fault him for calling for a boon at that moment, because he had just proven his whole, I don't want to say he had proven his prejudice or like why, but that the root of why he is prejudiced towards light eyes was completely spotlighted in that moment, right? Because no one else stood up to go help.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way of putting it. And I think the part where obviously I liked where like Dalinar got to like thank him for saving his son's life, but also chew him out, which is why he was in jail. And I liked when Kaladin realized that the other noises he'd been hearing in the prison were actually Adolin, who like insisted upon being in jail the entire time he was there because it was like he didn't think it was fair either. So like that really like helped jumpstart their friendship. And I was like, yes, my babies.
Yes. At that moment, I was like, finally, you two are going to start talking to each other.
It's like about dang time. Right?
Yeah. Oh, he's so funny. Adolin is hilariously ridiculous.
I honestly don't know if I've missed anything else from Kaladin in this book. Do you have any other thoughts on Kaladin? Because that's kind of where I'm at.
Gotcha. Well, if anybody wants to throw something up in the comments about Kaladin, then I love Adolin locking himself up too. Yeah, that was I really liked that. Let's see. I think one of the coolest things that Kaladin did in this book, I really liked the scene between him and Seth where they were battling it out. But whenever he literally just plucks Dalinar out of the sky and then puts him down on the ground and is like, okay, we have a conversation to have. And I was very happy about that because Dalinar had flown up into the sky. It was like, what the fuck? How is this gonna work? And then Kaladin came in and I was like, oh yeah, he's a superhero.
Basically. That's basically what they are. Kaladin is definitely one of my favorite characters and continues to be like in my rereads and even in like book 3 and 4. But I think Kaladin definitely is very central to the storyline and everything he goes through, and every choice he makes definitely affects like more people. And I think that's just cool and powerful because he does. Obviously, Kaladin's a fictional character in this story, but he's like, I hate everything. Everybody sucks. The Light Eyes are the worst. But like every choice I make is gonna change the like direction of the story. Like he doesn't quite. I know we're like have the outside perspective in all of this, obviously, but but like just watching from the outside, he's like, yes, you're struggling and everything, but everything you do directly impacts like the direction of maybe success or failure in the story. So we appreciate you even if you don't appreciate yourself, sir.
I kind of hated that I agreed with Dalinar whenever he was kind of chewing Kaladin out and he said something along the lines of, if you want things to change for Dark Eyes, you don't do it by yelling out in the middle of an arena. You do it by being the best damn captain you can be, and all these things. I thought it was really interesting to, I guess I shouldn't, like, I didn't agree with Dalinar in that moment, but it was like, you both kind of have obvious points here. Like, both of you have solid footing. But yeah. I liked that Kaladin heard that, he took it into account, and then he pushed past it anyway.
Yeah, I do think that Dalinar had a fair point. He's like, I thank you for what you did because my sons are alive. Thank you. And but that's not the way to actually implement change in this scenario. Like, but Kaladin's whole deal was, and especially at this point, he was like, he had lost faith in Dalinar because he saw that Dalinar and Amaram were like buddying up, and he was like, "You're not listening to me, man." Which Dalinar actually was, but he was trying to find the proof that it would have required in the weird Light Eyes society that they live in to actually make a difference about it. So
so Dalinar was willing to navigate the bureaucracy of it, whereas Kaladin was like, let's just cut the head off the snake and be done, which I feel like Dalinar should have let him do. And maybe this is a good part to transition to Dalinar a little bit because I have thoughts on him and the way that he handled Amaram. It was like, whoa, hold on. You've actually been advocating for Kaladin the whole time. That's awesome. That, like, it sort of redeemed Dalinar for me a little bit. And then the other thought that I have about him off the top of my head is that I was a little bit unsatisfied with the way that he got a sprint. Like, that was weird to me. It was just like,
where he yelled at the Stormfather, was like, I insist that you bond with me now.
Yeah, it was like, wait, they're doing what now? Huh?
So the Bondsmiths, which is what Dalinar is.
Yes.
is an interesting thing that I don't fully understand. I need to go read some lore and get some like more information on it. But I think it was bound to happen no matter what, just because the Stormfather had actually chosen him with all the visions and everything. So there was like no way to like not that it wasn't going to happen. I do agree that it might have been a little bit forced or rushed, and but at the same time, I'm like, it wasn't unexpected for me, at least. When I read it the first time, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Here we are. I do think it wasn't like as well earned as some of the other people, as we saw like with Shallan and Kaladin. They had to like be broken to get their spread. But I know that a lot of Dalinar is going to be explored and analyzed, because he really is the next book. Like there's so much more Dalinar than other characters, even in like when there was their own flashback books and stuff in the next book. So it's Dalinar is a very interesting character, and I think on the on the like note of more the storyline of Words of Radiance, I think that he could have definitely, especially with the stuff with Kaladin and Amaram, could have been more upfront with Kaladin to like save Kaladin some of his stresses about the things. But
really, it's just finally gonna happen. See, so I must have just not been reading that into that as much as I should have been, or something, because I don't know. Just once we got to that part, it was like, wait, all you had to do was yell at the thunder and tell them that you wanted him. Like, what? And then that made me, because I had, for some reason, I thought that the bondsmith was the guy that not Till, that's the dude that fell out of the sky or whatever. And
the herald that's in jail.
Yes.
Canalanalan? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
When
I said Till, I was thinking about Tin, who is not the same person. But yeah, it left me wondering about the Herald, because I was like, oh, so I guess the Herald isn't the bondsmith. What the hell's going to happen with him now? So I thought that was kind of strange.
Yeah, I honestly can't tell you if I predicted it as much the first time I read it, because I honestly don't remember where I was at the first time I read it. It had been like 3 years. So in the reread, I obviously knew it was coming. But yeah, I think it ultimately does make sense, though, because who else was going to bond with the Stormfather? Also, the Stormfather as its own like kind of character is just interesting to me, because it's definitely its own entity, so to speak, but it's not like Honor, because Honor, again, like we quoted recently, Honor is dead. What else are you gonna do about it? It's not like any of the gods of this world, and I'm not gonna elaborate because I don't know which ones we've met yet, but like we know that Honor was like, and the Stormfather is his own entity, but it's just playing Honor's memories. So like, could someone have typically like theoretically bonded with Honor if Honor was still alive? I'm so like iffy on all of that. But
yeah, and I guess that's the thing, is like you said, who else was going to bond with the Stormfather? And I guess for me, I thought, well, the Stormfather is like a different kind of Spren. Like he's different. He's not the same thing. So whenever he did bond with someone, it was like, okay, wait, what? That's, my brain is broken now.
Who knows?
Are there any other characters that we need to talk about? I think we did.
Jasnah.
Yes. Oh my god. Okay, so Jasnah. That was in all capitals with many exclamation points.
I just remember when I remember, because I pay attention to the Discord even if I don't talk as much as I probably should, but I remember when you posted like, what do you mean Jasnah just died? I lost all of my interest in the Shallan chapters. And I was like
yeah, I was like, I raged about that. I was like, Jasnah's friggin' gone. Why? And then like the best part, I was telling Sammy that for me, the best part of the fact that Jasnah comes back at the end is it's like she's back because of who she is on the one side, but then on the other side, she's back because Wit didn't have anybody to talk to. So he was just like, hey, I need you to come hang out with me for a minute because everybody else is boring. And it was like,
what?
Like, of course you would, but also what the hell?
Yes. Yeah, so I think I honestly don't remember like exactly what happened with her coming back, but I think we get more explanation onto like where she was in Oathbringer, so I'm not gonna talk about that. But I do think like when I read it the first time, I was like, nah, there's no way. Like there's no way she actually died. But
Well, because then
the
like
longer
in the chapter they say make sure, and it's, you know, it's a stab her in the chest, so it's like to the reader that says she's gone. There's really like that's all there is to it. She's gone. And
yeah.
then the only inkling of hope that you get is Navani, who's like, no, I know my daughter and she's not dead. So like that was a good justification for me at the end too. It's like, yes, Navani knows her daughter. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, yeah, you're good. I was just saying, like, I didn't believe it, but then, like, she just didn't come back for like 1,000 pages, and I was like, well, I guess she did. Then I was like, just kidding. So I was like, all right, good times here, good times. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about Yasna because there's not. She obviously didn't have a huge part in this book, so. But I thought the her dying was interesting.
Yeah. So I liked with Moash, I liked that by the end we got to see that we're still going to be keeping in touch with him off and on at least. But I'm not happy about the fact that I feel like that's gonna come back to bite Kaladin. Like the fact that he gave the the shards to someone who then ultimately tried to assassinate the king. And it's like, hopefully there aren't any witnesses, but also Kaladin is honor person, so he might say something about it anyway. And it's just like, I really don't want. It's like if Moash could just go and not come back, that would be really great.
No comment. No, I do agree that like in the context of Words of Radiance that Moash is it Moash? I've always said Moash.
Moash is how they pronounce it in the audiobook.
I should listen to the audiobook. I don't know how anyone's names are pronounced, but Moash
on the next reread, right?
Yeah, I mean, I might as well. And in 3 years we'll have book 5 or something like that, right? Yeah, Moash in the context of this book was very important, again, for Kaladin's journey, and we needed that to happen so Kaladin could, like, overcome duress or whatnot. Not like he's gone through it enough or anything, but, yeah, it would be really great if he just disappeared and went away and didn't bother us, but...
That's not going to happen. That's not how Sanderson works. Moash, yeah.
Yeah. I've always said Moash.
And then don't we all? Yeah, man. Like, it's just not going to end up being good news for Kaladin if he starts coming back around. That's my whole thing. It's like, you stay away from Kaladin. You've done enough.
I'm just gonna not comment on that. But so I think we talked about all the characters. We didn't officially like have a segment or whatnot on Adolin, but we talked about him in conjunction to everybody else. So I think that's good enough.
Yeah.
Navani, we didn't really talk about, but she didn't do a whole lot besides like be attached to Dalinar in this book. So I was like, all right, cool.
I liked that we got to see more of her fabrials and like how they actually help the world work. And, you know, like she actually has this pretty foundational part of the world that just sort of gets taken for granted, you know. Yes. One character that we didn't talk about that I have to talk about, especially in conjunction with Adolin, is Sadeas. Yes. I was like, you just stabbed him in the face. That is the best thing
so
ever.
Good. So good. No, I that was a long time coming, and I hated Sadeas was such a good villain though. Like he was very easy to hate, and you always knew that he was up to something, but like not in a way that would like destroy the fabric of the universe, unlike Targaryen or whatever his name is. Taravangian. See, I always pronounce his name different because I again haven't read the audiobook, so I'm like Targaryen, and that's how we're gonna say it today. Taravangian. So yeah, I think Sadeas was a very good like initial villain in this book, like in terms of like within the Alethi people. But yeah, I was not upset when Adolin stabbed him in the eyeball. That was great. It was exactly the death he deserved though, like stabbed in a back alley in the eye. And I'm like, yep.
Yeah. I loved it because Adolin was like, you know what? enough of this. And I was like, hell yes, something's
Yeah.
about that.
Yes,
Screw it,
exactly.
Lefty Decorum. We are underground. The thing is, though, his wife is not just gonna like fade into the background. Like, she's vindictive and plays politics just as big as everyone else does. So I'm kind of waiting for her to come wiggling up out of the woodwork.
She is problematic in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so yes, that was good. Good job, Adolin. He deserved it.
Yes.
He sucked.
Yes.
I think something we didn't quite talk about besides Sadeas dying at the ending and Yasna coming back is that the whole battle sequence with the Parshendi that ended up getting them to Uritharu. That was
Uritharu, I think is how it's pronounced. That one.
Oh, look, a dead body.
Yes, I loved how he just was like, oh, yeah, I know how.
Hey guys, I found a thing. I found it. Look what I found.
It's like it's the best use of his privilege, best ever use of his privilege.
Absolutely,
to be able to say like, nah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that because I think we kind of have hit most of the other major plot points in the character discussion, except for like the final battle with the Parshendi and everything. I
think Eshonai is not dead. I will throw that out there.
Okay, that's all I'm gonna say about that. I liked Eshonai's character, and I know we get some of the Parshendi in this book with the backstories, and not both the backstories, but like I think we get some interlude perspectives at least from them with Venli and Eshonai, and I think that's a cool dynamic, and the battle and kind of just learning generally more about the Parshendi culture is fun. I'm really excited for something that's going to happen with the Parshendi backstory in the next book and see how you react to it. That's all I'm going to say. It's wild.
So I know that like with that mass exodus, whenever she was sending everyone out to be executed and then they ran away, like that was sort of this thing that it happened and it kind of got like glossed over. But then once all the Voidbringer stuff was over, they were like, oh, the Parshendi people are no more. And I'm thinking, actually, this is getting ready to become a big problem. And I'm kind of curious to see if we get to still keep an eye on that particular sect of the Parshendi. And I was very sad for Eshonai whenever that went down with her, because she was such a good character, and then she became this monster essentially. And I'm like, no, you were good.
Yeah, that was a thing for sure. Yeah, and I think the whole battle sequence was really cool, just generally for a battle scene. I liked how I believe it was the one where like Adolin had to run around the back and like cut through the rock or something with his shard blade.
Yes.
Like that one, I'm like, yeah, go kid.
I love how his response, he's like, how did you know this was going to be hollow? And he was like, because I once had a woman ask me to slice a boulder in half for to dissect a boulder. And it's like, yes, Shallan, you've done it again.
That was good. And I think the discovery of the city obviously is important going forward in the trajectory of the story. I'm not going to try to pronounce the Uritharu again. We're just going to not. And I think that's the Shallan pulling out her shard blade of pattern is the first, like, to do that, to move the plateau is actually the first time people realize that she is indeed radiant or whatnot. So I think that was like a cool reveal choice.
It was. And then when Adolin got back, he was like, wait, you're a what?
You have a sword? She's like, hello.
Right. Yeah, I like the fact that they explained that that's how the shard, like, explained the screaming whenever Kaladin held a shard blade, and explained like why it takes 10 heartbeats to summon a shard blade and why Shallan can have hers instantly and things like that. I enjoyed that explanation.
That was good for sure. Definitely. Was there any other plot points that we missed? By the way, if anyone from the audience has questions, please ask us to talk about them. Like, we like to do that.
Yeah, we're literally just bantering. You guys are supposed to banter with us. Banter.
banter. Did you have a like overall favorite scene from the book?
Oh, there's so many though. I
Yeah, the
really, really, really enjoyed the arena scene.
mhm.
Getting to watch Adolin be a badass with the shards and be as good as he knows he is was like, all right, fine. Like your ego, it gets a little bit of wiggle room now. And then with Kaladin getting to see everyone else see him take down these shard bearers and be the kind of thing where it was, I think I like to think too also that seeing Kaladin take down a shard bearer was probably something that helped Dalinar be like, you know what, I should probably look more into that whole Amaram thing, because he can obviously take down a shard bearer, like.
Yes,
So I think
yes.
that was one of my favorites. So what was yours? Renarin talked about the screen. It was.
I think it was Renarin actually, because when he was training or something with Vasher, he was, or something like that, or it was later in the book. Maybe he.
I thought it was Syl that explained Syl or Pattern that explained that it's that they have to be brought back to life.
I think one of the Spren explained it, but I also think that Renarin gave the stuff back to Adolin, saying he hears screaming or something like that. But I think one of the
Oh
Spren
yeah, you're
actually,
right. Okay.
one of the Spren actually explained it more, maybe, or something like that.
Right. Yeah, and then you're right. They did touch on that. That makes me wonder, like, if Renarin is going to have a Spren. Oh, also, like, whenever Yasna died, I was like, oh, well, what the hell happened to her Spren? Because, like, she had one too. So I'm looking forward to seeing Syl and Pattern and Wendell and, you know, all these Spren come together too. Like, I want like a Words of Radiance plot intertwining for them as well, like we had for all the other characters.
Well, so just to answer the Renarin point, I think he didn't. I watched a review and like a summary, so I know this is indeed true. Renarin at the end of Words of Radiance was like, "Hey, I'm a Truth Watcher."
Yes.
So he does have a Spren. We just haven't met the Spren yet.
Right. And it seems to me like Renarin doesn't really know that he has one yet, which makes me, or maybe just not from our point of view, but
you will see in the next book what happens with Renarin. That's all I'll say about that. But
I'm glad we get more of him.
Yes, for sure. So I think I have like two overall favorite scenes. I was a big fan of the chasm scene, obviously, because I love Kaladin, and it was once, like you said, when Syl wasn't there, that was like really made it more impactful and everything. And then also I liked the battle sequence or the fight scene we got where with Kaladin, Zeth, Dalinar, Adolin. I liked that. Those were like my two, I think, favorite scenes. Obviously, the Sanderfans and whatnot at the end of the book was all obviously good. Like, yeah. That was a good time. So I think for you to answer more than me, because again, I know what happens. Like, I know you were saying a little bit about what you want to happen in this, like going forward. Do you have any more theories or stuff you want to discuss? Or we can talk about Wit, because we didn't talk about Wit. I was going to say,
let's talk about Wit first, because he kind of leads into one of the theories that I have. So I really I love Wit. I've loved Wit since we met him. I think it's great that Adolin loves him so much, and Wit picks on Renarin. I was kind of sad that we didn't get to see more of those interactions with him this time. I thought it was interesting that he took such an interest in Kaladin, and I think that was the part that was very telling to me, that he was not necessarily of this world, right? And then he actually alludes to that himself at some point in the book that I can't remember right off the top of my head. He tells somebody that he's not really from here.
Well, so I do know we get a scene where either in one of the interludes where someone is talking about him or he is talking about himself, where we get a hint that he can absorb the magic from metal objects. That happens at some point in this book, which You and I know what that's about, Kat, but we're not going to say that is a Cosmere implication. That's all I'll say about that. And I believe we got an interlude of people looking for him in this book, and if not, I won't say any more than that because it's in the next one. But basically, people are at some point in the Cosmere, or at some point in the Stormlight Archive, in one of the interludes, people are like looking for Wit. They use a different name, but they're looking for him. So,
okay. So, I kind of think I figure that Wit is, interconnected to the greater Cosmere thing. I have a suspicion that he might have been responsible for the excerpts in one of the parts where it was like a letter to people.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought that maybe that was someone writing him a letter, asking him to stop meddling, because clearly he's meddling. So yeah, it's in, let's see, this is chapter 66. So I think this is like part 4 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought he was an interesting character in that point. I don't know that I have a whole lot more to say about Wit.
I just generally will comment that I like Wit's comic relief attitude, and when he picks on people, especially when it was like Sadius, which we'll no longer get to see because Sadius is dead. But yeah, I just enjoy Wit as a character, and he is clearly important to many things that are going on. So
his insult to Amaram, I was like, oh damn, that burned.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever keeps your hands clean. It's like, oh shit, dude.
Yeah. One thing I think we forgot to mention that is just generally important. We don't really have to talk a whole lot about it, but I thought it was interesting that Shallan is infiltrating / joining the Ghostbloods in this book. It's an interesting plot point that matters later. So
we also got a little bit from Moash's point of view, and from the attempted assassination attempt on Elhokar, that apparently the Ghostbloods are tied into the diagram that Taravangian is working with. So that sounds like it's probably all going to be nice and seedy.
Yes, it is. It is a time for sure. Can't really talk more about the Ghostbloods at this point, but yeah, it's the whole organization as a whole, at least in this book, is very mysterious, and I'm very intrigued about it from my Words of Radiance brain.
Mm-hmm.
To take a step back, because I know many things now, but yeah, it's a good time, and I think Shallan's whole adventure with that organization is very important to her character and to her personality issues, because she creates this light weaved persona veil for that. So I think that that's obviously important for her, especially with her like dissociative identity disorder that she has. So
yeah, I watched that all going on, and to see that in parallel with like how she's treating her relationship with Adolin much more honestly, even if it's just due to the nature of her character in general, that she's not good at. It's really ironic because she's not good at pretending to be the person that she is. Like, she's not good at pretending to be somebody that she's not, unless she's in the
light weaved
role of the person that she's not. And so it's really interesting to see. They were looking for Wit in book.
Oh, it was in book 1. Okay, yeah, that's what it was. I couldn't remember when that interlude was.
But she has this very honest role with Adolin, and I'm kind of curious because that's going to hit a boiling point with her Ghostblood involvement and her involvement with Adolin, and now her being a Radiant on top of all these things, and then at the end where. Who's the dude that runs the Ghostbloods? He's like the creepy guy with the darts.
Reids?
Reids, yeah. He followed them to Urithuru and knows who she is now. So it's like, oh god.
Yes. So, how the turntables. No, I also like Vale more than Shallan. That is not weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Shalon's cleverness, and like I just wish I'm looking forward to watching her grow up. I think she will be a much better person whenever she's older.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think at this point, if you want to just chat about anything you think that's coming, or I don't know, theories, and I can just like smile and nod, boys, smile and wave.
So I am curious to see. So I'm a little confused because we had this notion that the heralds retired, essentially, right? And left the world with these radiants to do the work that they didn't want to do anymore. So then we have Harold T, that I can't ever pronounce his name correctly. Yeah. And
I don't know.
and he's got like some issues that he's trying to work through. But then there was this other Harold who brought Seth back to life, which was like, I thought you guys were gone. Like, what are you even still doing here? So then that opens up this door of like, well, who else is here? Is everybody just here and they've been on the down low for a while? Or are they just not paying attention? Like,
so what I understand, sorry for the chihuahua barking noises. That's not where I can deal with it. It's up the stairs. But yeah, so from what I understand at this point is that the heralds went into retirement, like they laid down their swords, but they're still immortal, so like that's why they're kind of still here. However, there's the one which I don't remember who it was, but the one who they left to the subjection of the torture for a millennium. And
yeah, that was the T guy.
Okay, I might be confused. Anyways, but like they left the one guy, and we don't know a lot about what's going on with his brain and stuff at this point, besides the fact that he's crazy. So you will know a lot more, and things will make a lot more sense by the time you get through book 4. But like, I don't want to say too much, obviously. But I think that kind of leads into Edge Dancer. I just wanted you to have your theories out there before I talked about that because you haven't finished Edge Dancer yet.
So Talm is what they call him in the prologue of Way of Kings. But something that I think I've been noticing, and I noticed this in book 1 as well, I have a theory that the heralds' names that the laymen use in Roshar are not actually their names. It's one of those things that like changed over time or something, because the names at like Kalak is very similar to Kalek, who is addressed a lot as like in God's name, man. That's like kind of how they use that. And then there were a couple more where it looked like maybe their pronunciations and spellings had changed. So that's a theory that I have there. And then I'm trying to think if I have other theories that I haven't talked about already.
I know that we talked a lot about the thrill in the last live show we had, and you will find out more about it in Oathbringer. There wasn't a whole lot that they talked about with that because Dalinar wasn't doing as much fighting in this book.
And Adolin lost his.
Yes, that is.
And then yeah, and then Taravangian mentions it. It gets mentioned in his interlude, which I thought was interesting. I was like, oh, okay, so this is widespread. Has he engineered this as well? And then I'm kind of curious as to whether or not Taravangian is being like possessed, sort of in the same way that Dalinar was, but maybe for the other side, and that's why he's doing this whole Ghost Bloods thing and trying to get Seth to murder all the high princes because he has some theory that he's better than everybody. I don't think I have more theories right now at this point.
It's hard to honestly have theories in in my opinion, like for Cosme related stuff, because there's just so much that goes on that it's kind of hard to differentiate like what's actually supposed to happen. And as far as like my experience with like Sanderson's writing, it's like I'm like very much don't expect what's going to happen. So theorizing is cool and all, but it's more like I don't think I'm right. So.
Right. Well, and then like something else that I noticed in this book was I started trying to like count off the radiance, right? It's like we got the Windrunner, we got the Lightweaver, we've got the Bondsmith, and we know we have an Edge Dancer, and then a Truth Watcher, and I feel like we heard about another one.
Did we say Else Caller? Because isn't that what Yasna is?
Yeah. Okay, so then there's the sixth one. They haven't touched on that a lot. It's just like, man.
No, I really want them to kind of like, even at this point where I'm at with my reading of like through book 4, they still have barely talked about like stone words and a few of the other ones. Like they've been mentioned, but like there's not a whole lot of additional information. I'm like, bro, my test told me I was a stone word. Please give me more information about what this is. So, anyways, that's like a semi-selfish reasoning, but I want to know like what. Like I do think that's still being built out because there's gonna be 10 books in this series. Goodness gracious.
So you said it's called a stone ward?
Stone ward, yeah.
So I wonder if that could be Seth or somebody from Shinovar because they think stone is sacred.
Interesting. I never thought about that. I think for like the next time we have a live, have you taken that quiz yet that's on the 7th shard, or sorry, on Brandon Sanderson's website about which order of the Knights Radiant you are?
No, but you should post it up in the Discord and then I will take it. I might even make it a video.
Knights Radiant quiz. Okay. There we go. I will post it up in the Discord in the general zone. So if you're hanging out with us in the Discord, you'll be able to find it. And so I will say that Brandon and his team, I think, put a lot of work into this, and it's very much like dragging of scales. And it kind of does like they do with a lot of personality tests where you can get like your top few. So I think it's a pretty fun quiz, and they give you a lot more of the information about the orders once you take the quiz. But anywho, that's so it's in the general chat of the Sanderfans read along. But you good to move into Edge Dancer?
Yeah, I dropped the Discord link just in case you're here and you're not part of the Discord and you want to be there. Yeah, I think we're safe to move into Edge Dancer at this point. In case you weren't here earlier, I'm going to admit again that I am a bad kid and I've been playing too many video games and I didn't finish reading Edge Dancer. I'm on chapter 7. I'm working on it. Don't hate me.
No, it is all good. And I think that...
book 1 was an Edge Dancer.
Very cool.
I couldn't be an Edge Dancer. I'm not graceful enough. I'm not graceful like at all.
Well, so with whatever you've read of Edge Dancer, what do you think so far? And then I can kind of just go through my little like live commentary that I put in the Discord when I was reading it.
So I think that how do I say this? Like Lift has this way of trying to not be as cool as she knows she is. Like she's not willing to like let that, not just with her powers, right, but like with in general. She said that she doesn't really want to get acquainted with people. She doesn't like that kind of thing. I still haven't seen a lot of information on like her mom, but it seems like that's going to end up playing into it somewhat. And then like I was telling you before we went live, the Skybreakers thing, I find it very interesting that we're bringing in yet another faction of people who are trying to not let the Radiance be.
Well, so the Skybreakers are an order of the Knights Radiant, which is what makes it more interesting. And I'm gonna try and be vague about this because I don't remember exactly. I think most of it's talked about in this book or very early in Oathbringer, so it's not too much of a spoiler. But the Skybreakers, which is where Zeth ends up, is because he dies and then comes back to life and is like just in the Skybreaker area. It's an order of the Knights Radiant where the actual person in charge of that, which is the guy who's hunting Lift and the other Radiants in this novella, he is actually one of the heralds. I won't say which one because A, I don't remember, and B, I don't know when to tell you that, but he is one of the heralds, and
Okay.
and their whole order is, and I know that one of I believe one of Shallan's siblings ended up being part of this at some point, and their whole motivation is to prevent the return of the Radiance due to the issues with the heralds and their oath pact and whatnot, and like they didn't want to be tortured anymore and or go through that and like have to just always like be tortured and all of this jazz. So it's one of those, they're basically trying to prevent the resurgence of the magic in this world because it causes a lot of the guy in charge of it is the one where is the herald, is one of the heralds. So he's like, a lot of the interest of the Skybreaker group is because he's the one controlling it. So it's not actually like necessarily on brand with the way the rest of the Radiance work. I do think the Skybreaker thing is very interesting because it's like you can be trained and have a like sprint assigned to you, which is very different from how we've seen the other Radiance work.
Right.
And I think that's all I'm going to touch on for the night for the Skybreakers, just in case I hit some spoilers and stuff. So it's very interesting, and we're not done with them yet, obviously. And they play a bigger role in the next book and book 4.
So I think it's all sort of coming to this place where you have to start. I feel like with book 1, I started out because of what the prologue was, wanting to know who these heralds were, why they were doing the thing that they were doing, and, you know, like what the Radiance were, because they got the short end of the stick was my understanding. And then also poor dude who got stuck burning for years and years, thousands of years.
I think it's like 4,500 years because that's how much time is like that was the time jump we saw or something like that between the last desolation and present.
Well, I can tell you that if I was that herald and I got back into town, I would be looking for some people for some explanations. Once I stopped, repeating myself over and over again. But I Words of Radiance has done a really good job of bringing it back around so that you are again asking yourself, who are these heralds? Why are they here? What are they doing? And kind of, it's interesting to see that kind of ebb and flow of looking at the small world building and then the big world building, right?
And then the universe world building. So yeah, I'll just comment just like a generic prep for Rhythm of WoR for everybody who's paying attention. It is the book that I've like it is the book I've read that has the most overall Cosmere implications, and it makes me kind of think that you'll need to have read everything in the entire Cosmere by the time book 5 comes out, just to fully understand the implications. So I count that into your 3-year reading plans, everybody. Because he seems to be pretty like timely with his Stormlight releases, so that's exciting for sure. So and I know that we start to kind of see that in book 2 where some stuff is kind of coming together, that we're getting like hints of things from the outside worlds and stuff, which again we'll not talk about in this, but
right.
But back to Edge Dance.
Real quick, I don't know if Monique is in here or not, but I know that the last time that I talked to her about the Stormlight Archive, she mentions that on Sanderson's website, he says that there are going to be 10 of them, which it's insane.
2 5-book arcs. Like there's Mistborn Era 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be like Stormlight Era 1 and Stormlight Era 2. So book 5, I think, is going to be I don't know for sure, but I think book 5 is going to be the end of like the characters we now know. Which kind of makes me sad because I love them so much, but I honestly don't know how the time jump is going to work or whatnot. And anyways, we don't know anything about that yet. We'll see when we get to book 5. So.
All right. So then going back to Edge Dancer, you were going to say something.
Oh yeah. So I was just going to say, I really liked Lift's character, and I think the whole opening sequence, which I know you've probably read in the first few chapters, which is what we also get out of the interlude in Words of Radiance, where she's like basically in the Azish area, and she like saves the Prime, and therefore like that the miracle that brought it back to life is why it gets chosen to be the new Prime. And it basically, I like the Prime of Azish's and Lift's relationship just going throughout the series, because we see them in the future and stuff, and that's just fun and like wholesome, good content.
That is fun. That is fun. I like Lift. I like her a lot. I wish that Wendell wasn't so friggin' stuffy, whatever his name is,
Wendell, yeah. I'm just gonna go and like, 'cause I basically, when I was reading, I was in the one of the more, not the last live reading I was a part of, but the one before that, I think I just read Edge Dancer like in the entire live, and I was commenting in the spoilers channel for that. So I think her little adventure in the new place, because I think she followed Darkness, or she wanted to see what he was up to, but she also is in this new city that apparently has 10 different types of pancakes, and we all know she likes her food.
I loved that.
That's fun.
And the guard that she encounters right at the beginning is like,
yes,
I just love it so much. I was like, yes, this is great. And then she dumps a bunch of grain into the.
I like that she also, throughout the course of the story, instead of everybody uses like storming as a curse word almost, she uses the word starving instead. So I think that's pretty funny. The first part she says, like, of the words, just because. So the Edge Dancer words are, "I will remember those who have been forgotten," and then later on we get the rest of the words. Page 105, we actually, it's like, I guess Lift isn't as young as we actually think she is, which is why she says, and I quote, they think they know you, they start to expect things of you, then you gave, that was a typo by Casey, I don't know, then you gave them to be the person everyone thinks you are, not the person you actually are. So I was like, dang, that's deep from someone who's 10 for 3 years.
Right.
And I think that it's interesting that her surge binding powers are food instead of Stormlight like everybody else. Even when we meet other Edge Dancers, they use Stormlight like a normal thing. So there's something afoot with her powers and why they're different.
Yeah.
Lift's Spren Wendell thinks Lift is a plant a few times, which is just humorous. That's on page 120.
I love that she keeps calling him a void bringer, and he's like, "I'm not a void bringer." She's like, "Yes, you are. You're a void bringer."
Yeah, it's so funny, and their whole banter is just entertaining, to say the least.
I like that description, Peter Pan-esque.
Mm-hmm.
She is sort of she's that sort of whimsy.
And she's she's that age where that Peter Pan is stuck at and all of that. So I that's a very good analogy. I never thought about it like that before. I like that we get to see Zeth in her little adventure. So page 152, Zeth shows up of the novella. So at this point, we kind of get to see Zeth and her interacting, both doing a few different things, but we also get to acquainted with the sword Nightblood, which, by the way, Warbreaker. And so that is the new sword that Zeth as a Skybreaker is given. So that's important for implications, but just fun to note. And I love, we obviously get to know that sword in Warbreaker, but we also get to see him the sword is its own character, even in the novella and in the Stormlight Archive. So
that's cool.
It talks. It's hilarious. The sword likes Lift, basically. And yeah, and then the words, the end of her words, because she only said like the first thing that we get at the end of the book is, "I will listen to those who have been ignored." So I'm like, oh, that's sweet. So that's
sweet.
That's about what we get. Those are the highlight plot points that I pulled when I read it during the live show.
I really like that there is this consistent theme with the Radiance that you have to talk to inanimate objects or look like you are talking to nothing. It's like they have to be, they have to be a little bit crazy. Yes. All of them have to be willing to look a little bit crazy, and it's like, oh, that's great.
And most of them are actually crazy, quote unquote, with like their mental issues in one way or another.
Yeah, they're all a little bit like there's a reason that their Spren chose them, obviously. Excuse me. But then I just like that they have this willingness to be awkward. It's like they've always been awkward. They've always been the weird one, so they don't care that they have to continue to be the strange one, especially with a character like Renarin, where it's like, oh, well, why didn't we see that coming? Which I had my suspicions. I didn't expect it to be as like thorough as all that. I think it's a little bit unfair that the Colons get 3 freaking radiance. Like, what is that? Why are they so special?
Who knows? I do think that so Edgedancer and its purpose is obviously to build out Lift's character some more and kind of build out the world, because we get to hang out in a few different places that we haven't been before, just on the map generally, and also to kind of begin the journey that Szeth has, and the whole Skybreakers and Darkness, who the character Darkness is the guy who is a herald. I forget which one, but anywho. So I think that is why it's an important novella to read. And if you haven't read it, it's not very long. And Kat, I believe in you. You'll finish it soon.
Yeah, I'm already sub 100 pages, so it's like,
oh yeah.
I mean, I've been getting there. I just haven't been doing it.
I think so. In terms of the novellas that we have so far for the Stormlight Archive, and I know he's planning on releasing one that theoretically is set between book 1 and 2 at some point.
Okay.
I feel like Edgedancer is more important for plot than Skyward is. Skyward is cool, and some stuff happened. Or sorry, not Skyward. That's his other book. Gosh, Dawnshard. Dawnshard is cool and everything, but I don't think it's as relevant to plot motion as Edgedancer is. So if you have to like not read Dawnshard before you read Rhythm of War, like, you're not going to miss anything. That was just my anecdotal. Yeah. It's cool, and it builds out a few of the characters that you meet in an interlude in Oathbringer and an interlude in Rhythm of War. But it's besides that, it's like, it's fine. So
you mentioned Dawnshard, and we talked about Lopen a little bit earlier, and I didn't say anything because it was super spoilery and we were in the non-spoiler section, but the way that we see him get his power was so fucking funny.
Yes.
Oh my god. Come here, I need to stick you to a wall.
And then his arm grows back, so it's a great time.
Yes. I loved that so much. And then once he gets back to Bridgeport, he's never going to shut up about it. He's going to be insufferable.
Yes. It's so funny. Skyward. Yeah, my bad. That was a brain melting situation for me. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about Edgedancer. It's like it's a cute little story, and I like Lift. I didn't really love her just with the interlude. I'm like, she's a weirdo, but the novella expansion on the interlude was helpful for building her character and helping us to realize her importance. And also she has like a continuing like friendship and activities that occur between like her and Szeth because of this. Like they met in this novella, but she continues to do stuff with Szeth in the other book. So it's fun.
That is cool. I'm looking forward to that. And then I also liked that Brandon Sanderson used this novella to point out yet another kind of Spren, right? We've got like the Cryptid, we've got the Honor Spren, and now we've got
whatever the heck Wendell is.
Yeah, what is it? It's like a life.
I'll Google it real quick.
Giver or something.
Wendell.
And
Cultivation Spren.
Cultivation Spren. Yes. So we're meeting yet another version of this magic system.
Yes. I like how Brandon Sanderson kind of does his world building in a way that it's like you don't have the answers, but you know enough to understand what's going on, and like the rest of it that you don't know is like the suspense that keeps you going, especially when there's more like in Way of Kings, how it was a little slower. I didn't find it boring at all because I was like, I need to know what this magic is. This is super cool. Also, I love Kaladin. Yay.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I'm in the same boat with you on that. I like that he gives you just enough and then like some evidence of why that might be, and then you get to digest that while you watch Kaladin fight Szeth in the air or something. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. First, let's get to this part.
Yeah. Did you want to? I know we're talking about like other adjacent spoilers for other books and stuff earlier. Do we want to talk about anything with Mistborn and stuff just in connection to this or not? Because I don't honestly know if there's that much to talk about at this point. But I was just before we, not that I need to get off or anything, but I'm just before we forget about that.
So then yes, going into spoilers for adjacent books for anyone who hasn't read Mistborn or One or Elantris or any of these things.
Spoilers.
Yes. So I thought it was interesting something that was pointed out in the Stormlight, or in the Stormlight Archive, in the Arcanum Unbounded, in this section about Cell, the place where Elantris was that these gods or whatever that they are, like where we saw ruin and preservation in Mistborn, there were two that were associated with Elantris as well, and those two ended up kind of breaking apart to create this magic system, which is also the same way that we see it happen in Mistborn. And then, so I'm kind of curious to see how that works in with the magic system that is the Stormlight Archive, and like, do they all have Sprin? You know, it's like, do they all have Sprin and they just haven't been calling them Sprin?
Yeah, I think the magic of the Cosmeres deals primarily with investiture, which is like the things that are the back end of the Spren and the shards, and like in Mistborn, it's like, especially when you're dealing with whatever the heck the people are that are what's his name? The people that wear the rings.
Oh, damn it! I knew right before you asked me.
Sazed's people, like
the ferrochemical.
Yeah, especially I think we actually hear the word investiture used in conjunction with the ferrochemists and stuff in the Mistborn world. And like the investiture is, I think, how a lot of the magic works in this universe. And I don't know how that connects to the gods or whatnot, but I know that in Oathbringer you actually get names for the other gods that are on Roshar, but I'm not going to say anything. So
I think they try to connect that back to like the whole cognitive realm thing too, that Yasna has tried to manipulate more than Shallan has.
Yeah, you'll get more evidence of the cognitive realm and stuff, and you get more exploration of that in the next book for sure. You get a whole lot even more than that in like Rhythm of War. It's wild. There's like a whole storyline that just takes place there, and I'm like, this is crazy.
So I guess, like, I don't have a whole lot of grasp on like the Cosmere greater story part.
I don't yet either, and I've read most of it.
But it's definitely weird. Like, it's definitely weird.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was another point that I was going to make about Mistborn that I can't remember now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. It seems. Oh, and I'm curious as to how like Chris works into it, the person who's writing, Arcanium Unbounded, and whether or not she is connected back to people like Wit who are manipulating these places, and then like.
Yeah, we've definitely seen Wit. We've seen Hoyd, I should say, in Elantris, Mistborn, and Stormlight. If you don't know who Hoyd is in Stormlight yet, then I'm not going to say the answer to that. But I might have kind of revealed myself at who I was talking about previously, but it's fine. So yeah, but Hoyd isn't even the guy's actual name, so there's that.
Yeah.
And I think we've also seen that character in Warbreaker, and probably in other. I'm trying to like look at my shelf. I don't know if we've seen him yet in Era 2 Mistborn, or we might have seen him and I just didn't notice because I was listening to the audiobook. So there's that.
So something that occurred to me while I was reading through the Arcanium Unbounded and getting associated with this person named Chris, and then putting that together with the fact that there's also this person named Wit who is more knowledgeable about like the bigger universe type stuff, it made me think, okay, so do we have these people who are like observing, like is it sort of, it made me think of that scene in Men in Black where there's like the marbles for the planets, and but it's actually like a little universe inside that planet, and so I was like, wait, do we have this super external focal point of like people watching all this happening in a universe, and it's actually just like this contained experiment or something. Like it's all really weird.
I assume we will find out eventually. Probably with book 5 of the Stormlight Archive. I seriously think that's going to be like where the maximum world hopping occurs very aggressively. So,
yeah. Sanderson has definitely promised in several of his newsletters and Kickstarter things and all this that there is going to be intergalactic things happening.
I'm planning on rereading Rhythm of War before we have our Sanderfans discussion on it, because there was just so much that happened in that book that had just greater implications than I could even imagine. Like, and I need to read it again to fully get everything, because I was just when I read the Stormlight Archive the first time versus like when I've been rereading it right now for this, is like I just like read through it as fast as humanly possible because I was so excited about it. But I'm like, in Rhythm of War, I keep like trying to process. I'm like, I missed things. Because I like I've been watching people's like reviews and stuff, and I'm like, I missed that. Like, where was that?
Yeah.
So I do plan on rereading it before we get to it. I believe in like February or March. For this, I don't know what the schedule is, but yeah, that's about all I have for the book we're currently talking about. Because I don't know if we want to get too crazy with the lore discussions, because I will probably accidentally reveal information I should.
Yeah, so we're coming up on time, so I'm not worried about too much more of the lore discussion. Oh my god, why can't I? Oh, you mentioned the schedule, so I'm gonna look at that really quick, because we have our schedule up for Oathbringer. We're gonna be starting that, or we technically starting that tomorrow, and then the live show for that is going to be January 30th at 1 p.m. And I don't think we've scheduled the live check-ins yet, because where we had some conflict of schedule in November because of holidays, I want me, you, and Sammy to kind of get together and figure out when we're going to do those live check-ins, but most likely they're going to be every other weekend like they have been. So
yes,
come and join us for some reading sprints. Make sure that you're over in the Discord geeking out with us over there, because
I do plan on retroactively adding all my stuff from Oathbringer, because I was taking notes because I decided to go much more aggressive with my vlog for Oathbringer. So I basically have like page numbers for everything in my phone. So I'm like, I'm going to go add them back. I just need to. I don't have my book though to check on what the page numbers, like which sections they're in. So I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna need someone to tell me some page numbers. But we can.
Sammy was so sweet and gifted me the
Floppy
boy for Oathbringer, and I'm excited to actually. I've never been so excited to get to a book simply because I want the experience of reading that particular format.
Yeah, the lay flat is definitely a mandatory experience for these books because they're so big. And I noticed like with the hardcover for Rhythm of War that it was so much more difficult to read because I'm like, it doesn't lay. I mean, it laid flat because of the way it was bound and stuff, but it was just like heavier, and I'm like, my arms hurt.
Yeah. Well, and like too. I'm sure the hardbacks are probably this also, but I've been reading the like tiny little mass market paperbacks. Like I've had some serious hand cramps and crap come up because I'm trying to read this little thing. But then like Shalon's illustrations, like this, are still good in the mass market paperback, and they're really cool, but they're harder to see. So with Oathbringer, with them being like a whole page, I'm going to be spending some significant time just looking at the illustrations and reading all the little notations that they put in there.
Absolutely, for sure. So yeah, I look forward to like I'm gonna have to go back and remember everything for Oathbringer, but luckily the vlog I posted is like 40 minutes long, so I can just go back and rewatch my vlog over it with all my reactions.
Yeah, cool. Yep. All right. Well, I think that's all I've got. So if that's all you've got, and I don't think we've got anything else coming in from the comments.
This has been fun though.
Yeah. I look forward to talking to everybody about Oathbringer next week.
Yes. Woo woo woo.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Hope to see you next time.
Bye,
See you later.
everyone.
Bye.